Tendai Mwari, be thankful unto God. Greetings, Galaxy Radio family. You're tuned into Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Hosting tonight's program is Brother Omawali and myself, Sister Kai. It's Monday, the 5th of January, and it's 5 minutes past the hour of 8. Alkebu-Lan is known for keeping its finger on the pulse of the community, addressing the most pertinent and controversial issues some radio stations just won't touch. So keep it locked on 102.5 FM or www.galaxyafiwi.com. And join us for the next 2 hours by calling 07983 852 952 or 07538 005 634. You can also text 07572 222 156. On Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan, we talk it straight and make it plain. This show is not for the faint-hearted. Tendai Mwari. Tendai Mwari, greetings and welcome, Brother Omawali.
Tendai Mwari, Sister Kai, giving thanks and praises to Mwari Nyakusika, God the creator of the universe, for the spirits of Mzumukuru, our great ancestors. Rumbitsu kuna Mwari Africa, to the God of Africa, be the glory. It is a joy to be an African, and it's a joy to be on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafiwi.com. Afia Shepa. That means Happy New Year, brothers and sisters. In the Akan language, one of the Akan language, Twi, from Ghana.
And the track we just played was Odunde. Happy New Year. Tendai Mwari.
Is that Yoruba?
That's Yoruba, yeah.
Yes.
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, brothers and sisters, and we are blessed to have in the studio with us our resident guest and part of the fixtures and fittings of the assets of the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement, none other than the spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement, Brother Leader Bandaka. Tendai Mwari, Brother Leader.
Tendai Mwari, Brother Mwale, Afeshiampa, and Adunde.
Afenko Meto Yebio.
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
It's bringing wonderful and loving greetings to everyone, all our listeners, all our treasured and beloved listeners, in the most precious, powerful, and bountiful name of our motherland, Alkebu-Lan, Mama Africa, in the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and in a prayer for oneness, hope, and prosperity for all African people on the face of Mother Earth. Rumbidzokuna Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. And if I just may say very quickly, it's always wonderful to hear the sound of the motherland, the sounds of the motherland, whether it's the drum, or our names or word sounds or whatever it is. It's just good to be surrounded with the rhythms and the vibrations of the motherland. So we are happy to say to our brothers and sisters tonight, Afeshiampa, Adunde, Happy New Year. And just to say, in regards to Afeshiampa, it means happy meeting of the year. Happy meeting of the year. So may the meeting of the year bring us happiness, may it bring us prosperity, may it bring us joy, may it bring us all things good. And then we say Afenkometo Yebio in response, which means may the year go around and meet us come to meet us again. In other words, may we be alive and well when the year comes around again. Africans conceptualize creation in a cycle. So it's the same year that goes around and comes back and meets us again. And we pray that it will meet us in good health, in strength. It will meet us happy and prosperous. So we send all of those greetings of love and upliftment to all sons and daughters of Africa at this time. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Tendai Mwari. We also have with us in the studio somebody who is fast becoming our resident guest number 2, and part of the current assets of the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement, none other than young brother Shakara Mbandaka. Tenda Mwari.
Yes, Tenda Mwari.
A.K.A. Tufadzwa.
Indeed. Tenda Mwari. Tenda Mwari to all
Mwari.
the Galaxy family. Afeshiapa. African power to all African people. Tenda Mwari.
Tenda Mwari. Short and sweet there from Tufadzwa. We got a fair bit to get through, brothers and sisters. We are looking at the very serious issue of the situation that is facing our dear mama Assata Shakur. And the question we're asking this evening, brothers and sisters, is should President Obama pardon Assata Shakur? We'll be looking at that shortly. I'll be hearing from our resident guests about this very, very important issue. And also we want to hear from you, brothers and sisters. The numbers to call in on a bit later is 07538 005634. You can log the numbers now. I'm sure all the Galaxy listeners will probably already have these numbers already. Excuse me. 07983852952. That's the other line. Or if you want to text in, you can do so on 07572 222-156. That's the numbers to call or text in on, brothers and sisters. Tendai Mwari.
Tenda Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. And again, brothers and sisters, we we want to say Happy New Year to all, and we give thanks. We've come through another Kwanzaa season, and I just want to give thanks and praises to all the brothers and sisters from the community who attended a wonderful karamu on the 31st. Oh, that was a beautiful, wonderful occasion. We're still in the Kwanzaa vibes. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and it was a blessed occasion, brothers and sisters.
Indeed.
Brothers from north, south, east, and west were celebrating the karamu with us, and we really had a wonderful time. Brother Leader, did you want to make any comment on our karamu?
Well, Tendai Mwari, just giving thanks and praises for all mercies, great and small, and certainly the mercies we enjoyed on the 31st into the 1st was a little bit more than small, wasn't it?
It was large.
It was a hearty evening into the morning of elevated African spirits.
Indeed.
All of us enjoying the joys of Kwanzaa, the joys of Africanness. And I just want to thank all our beloved brothers and sisters who came to share that spirit of love and celebration of goodness, greatness in Africanness. It was really, really beautiful. Tendai Mwari. And what most importantly, the children.
Yes.
All the children that were there having so much fun. With children, when we have children and when we inspire them according to our own culture and our own traditions, brothers and sisters, they really pay us back in a very, very beautiful way. And they certainly did for the Karamu. So we give thanks and praises. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Tendai Mwari, Sister Kai?
Yes, Tendai Mwari. We've got a few announcements to make
Go
today.
ahead, my
so
sister.
if I just get through them, there's quite a few, all important nonetheless. Let's just to say we would like to send our condolences to the Roddock family, whose father, husband, brother, uncle passed away. And that's grandfather. And that's Baba Ras Eric Roddock. And his passing over ceremony or his celebration of life ceremony will be taking place tomorrow at Streatham Vale Cemetery. I think that's what it's called. And that's at 12 o'clock. Also, brothers and sisters, we would like to take the opportunity to remind ourselves that on the 1st of January 1804 was the independence of Haiti. Under the leadership of Dessalines. And I'd just like us to just hear this.
Call now on this number.
It's 07-538-005-634 or 07-983-852-952.
24-hour radio.
Galaxy Radio 102.5, our Philly station.
Tenamora, yes, sisters and brothers, this is Galaxy Radio 102.5, Afiwi Station. Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan, and the discussion this evening is, should Obama pardon Sister Mama Assata Shakur? Before we go into that, also we'd like to remind ourselves that we still are giving our tributes and condolences to the passing of Baba Ben Israel, the leader of the Hebrew Israelites, African Hebrew Israelites, who passed away on the 27th of December 2014. And we just want to play this very quick tribute. It's called Dimona. That's the spiritual capital of the world, by Tonistics.
In the spirit of the ancestors. In the
.5 FM, www.afiwi.com, the only de-brainwashing station. Yes, brothers and sisters, our subject matter this evening, should President Obama pardon Assata Shakur? We'll get to that shortly, brothers and sisters, but we're pleased to announce the 50th anniversary of the brutal assassination of Omowale Malcolm X. And the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement will be having, on the 22nd of February, our OMX, we call our OMX observance, venue to be confirmed. For our young people, we will also be having what we call X Storm or OMX Storm, Triple X Storm, on the 28th of Feb. And that's for our young people. For those of you who were at Messiah Storm, well, this is X Storm, brothers and sisters. So, you know, all you budding performers out there, you better brush up because Brother Shakur is looking for talent out there. He's going to do his talent spotting. He may have a few people already lined up, but it's an opportunity to grace the platform with those powerful and conscious lyrics. We'll be hearing from Shakur about that event a little bit later on. On the 1st of January of this year, brothers and sisters, was the centenary of the life, the journey of the great historian and many others, Baba John Henrik Clark. Can we hear our elder? Yes, a great legacy there, brothers and sisters. It is also on the 19th of May of this year will be the 90th anniversary of the life of Omowale Malcolm X, because obviously the spirit of the great Omowale Malcolm X still lives on. And we've very much fused and connected with one of the prophets of our movement, Omowale Malcolm X. So, so stay tuned, brothers and sisters, to Galaxy Radio. You'll hear more information about the Omowale Malcolm X observance and also X Storm, the OMX observance on the 22nd of February and X Storm on the 28th of February. Tendai Mwari, brothers and sisters. Yes, our subject matter this evening: should President Obama pardon Assata Shakur? Tendai Mwari. In what many regard as the historic announcement on December the 17th, 2014, of moves to normalize relations between the USA and Cuban governments, for many, one name leapt out of the fray: Assata Shakur. In exile in Cuba since 1984, Mama Assata is the former Black Panther and Black Liberation Army freedom fighter convicted in 1977 of the 1973 shooting of a New Jersey state trooper. However, apart from being shot in the back at the scene, medical and forensic evidence proves that she could not have committed it. Her trial, described by her lawyer Lennox Hinds as a legalized lynching, was fraught with injustice. In addition to the aforementioned factors, the state's only witness, State Trooper James Harper, admitted lying in all 3 of his official reports. Furthermore, 5 of the jurors on the case were either relatives or close personal friends of state troopers or state law enforcement officers. Thus, in defiance of this injustice, Mama Assata Shakur Hela broke out of prison in 1979, ending up in the Caribbean island of Cuba 5 years later, where she was duly granted political asylum. After the December the 17th announcement, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie wrote to President Obama, imploring him to, quote, demand the immediate return of Assata Shakur before moving forward with plans to normalize relations with Cuba. He states, if, as you assert, Cuba is serious about embracing democratic principles, then this action would be an essential first step. I ask you to use this opportunity to engage with the Cuban government to get this resolved. And I'm very disappointed that returning a convicted killer of a police officer was not already demanded and accomplished in the context of the steps you announced regarding this dictatorship. In a later interview, Christie said, referring to Assata Shakur, he said she's a cold-blooded, cop killer convicted by a jury of her peers in what is without question the fairest, this is what he said, the fairest and most just criminal system in the world. Certainly much more just than anything that's happened in Cuba under the Castro brothers. As a counter to this, Sister Ayanna Smith of Washington, D.C. organized an online petition for Governor Christie to pardon Mama Assata. And that's www.change.org. And there's a lot more, which I'll get to later. Tindai Muhadi. The petition amassed 20,000 names in the first 3 days. The total now stands at 28,000 with 72,000 required. To date, the Cuban government insists that it will not extradite Assata Shakur. The Cuban Foreign Ministry's head of North American Affairs, Josefina Vidal, told the Associated Press, "Every nation has sovereign and legitimate rights to grant political asylum to people it considers to have been persecuted. We've explained to the U.S. government in the past that there are some people living in Cuba to whom Cuba has legitimately granted political asylum." Vidal also noted that the two countries have no extradition treaty in effect. The current political climate in the USA is ostensibly one of an increasingly militarized police acting as an extrajudicial force seemingly above and beyond the law, much like the era that Mama Assata was active in. The main difference appears to be the marshalling support from the European media. Whereas in the 1960s, it was stealth and subterfuge, today activities are out in the open as the media supports and substantiates, all of which is happening under the watch of the first African, American or black president and Attorney General Eric Holder. So brothers and sisters, this evening we asked the question, should President Obama pardon Mama Assata Shakur? Does Obama's failure to pardon Assata Shakur put him in league with J. Edgar Hoover's COINTELPRO? Will Obama exert pressure on Cuba to extradite Mama Assata Shakur? Does the USA really have the fairest and most just justice system in the world? Will you sign the petition to pardon Assata Shakur, or should you be demanding exoneration? Our special guests are, as we mentioned, brothers and sisters, none other than the spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan revivalist movement, Brother Leader Mbandaka, and also side by side is none other than Brother Tafadzwa Shakara Mbandaka, who is, amongst other things, a journalist, broadcaster. He's a youth leader and he's a spoken word activist. Tendai Mwadi. Okay, Brother Shakara, we're going to open up with you. Tendai Mwadi.
Tendai Mwadi.
The plight of Mama Assata Shakur. Now, we've given a very, very brief insight into what Mama Assata has actually been through. Now, let's deal with the initial question. Should President Obama pardon Assata Shakur? Should it be a pardon?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And when I initially saw the petition, the word pardon jumped out at me, simply because, as far as I was aware, in order for a pardon to be effected, one would have to admit to have committed a crime. Right. And so I did my little research, and as far as I'm aware, as far as my research suggests thus far, that is the case as far as the American criminal justice system goes. And I say criminal because it's technically not really a justice system.
Some would say an injustice system.
Injustice system. So basically, as a result of that, I am not of the mind that, well, I mean, President Obama can do what the hell he wants. You know what I'm saying? As far as, you know, his remit as
but most presidents at the end of their term,
commander in chief, yeah,
they pardon somebody. Don't they?
Yeah. But okay, so if you listen to Mama Assata herself speak, yeah, she even analyzes her frame of mind at the time of the trial, and says that words to the effect that she can't even believe that she even took part in that circus, that kangaroo court. Basically, effectively, this is herself speaking. So if I tune into the spirit of Mama Assata Shakur, it would suggest to me that she's not interested in being pardoned by any president, because she has maintained her innocence from that day until this. And so even if a pardon was offered, I doubt that she would be in any frame of mind with regards to acceding to that, because it would require her to admit to have committed a crime. The crime in this instance, the murder of the police officer.
What would be more important? Would it be the principle, or would it be something of political sort of expediency?
Again,
because Mama Assata is somebody who is away from, she's been away from her family for 20 years plus, and obviously is missing her family is missing her. So the net effect will be she'll be able to connect with her family. Wouldn't that be the best thing? Political expediency? What say you?
Once again, if I tune into the spirit of Mama Assata herself, I don't think she would take back anything with regards to her activism and the stances that she has taken over the years. She is a fighting spirit, and her spirit remains that way how much years later. And so again, if she today is questioning why she even bothered to participate in what she called a circus, why would she then now, for political expediency's sake, forsake the principle of her innocence for political expediency? She has been able to connect with her daughter, who she gave birth to while in prison under torturous circumstances. Her daughter has visited her in Cuba. Members of her family have been able to do that. And so I believe when you hear her speak, her spirit is very much rested at home amongst the African people. And the predominantly African environment and the African spiritual, cultural experience that she has been open to in Cuba. And so and obviously not having spoken to her personally on this particular question, so I'm reading in between the lines of her spirit and her words, and I'm thinking to myself, no, this is not a woman who is prepared to accept what she is innocent of for the sake of going along to get along. Anything short of complete exoneration is something that I'm sure she would not accept. So so I believe, and I would love to connect with the people that started the petition, but I believe the word pardon needs to be replaced with exoneration. And I do believe there is a place for us as African people to campaign for her exoneration.
So does that mean then that you don't think that the community should engage in signing the petition?
I'm in two minds about that. I don't want to completely throw cold water on the initiative, because I don't know enough about it to do that, if that makes sense. What I would like to do is appeal to the people that started it to say, listen, legally speaking, this is what pardon means. This is what exoneration means. We have another example. There is a campaign to exonerate the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, on the false charges that he was that he underwent in America.
Well, I think there's two petitions out there. But there's one for pardon as well.
Okay, right. Yeah. Well, I am aware of the exoneration campaign, and it appears to me that seems to be the most prominent one. But in law, language matters. There is a difference between pardon and exoneration. Exoneration means that you have the state, the system, admits to its blunder for convicting you of a crime. Pardon means that you admit to the blunder of committing a crime, and the state just says, right, time served, we'll let you off. And I don't believe that any of us should fall prey to getting wrapped up in that kind of admission for somebody who has sacrificed so much for us and has maintained their innocence. Tenam Wari.
Just to let our listeners know that our producer did try and get in contact with those that started the petition, yes, as well as our lawyers. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get them for this show, but hopefully sometime in the future. Tendai Mwari.
Yeah, okay, Tendai Mwari. Now, the USA, they this. Oh, first of all, the actual announcement about sort of the links between Cuba and America being sort of solidified again, or the process. This historic announcement on December the 17th. What do you make of that?
It was a very interesting one. I was watching the news and I flicked between various stations, NBC, CNN, Fox News, primarily, to see what was going on. And I allow Brother here to go into much of the history behind it. But in respect of the actual announcement itself, it was an interesting one. I believe that Barack Obama is a man who is very much in the last 2 years of his term trying to secure his legacy as a left-wing advocate. When I say left-wing, or trying to play the game, if that makes sense. So when I say left-wing, I don't mean far left, as in what many might call socialist or revolutionary, but left as in liberal, democratic, American politics will allow. And so basically his argument is that the Cold War, so to speak, that has taken place between the two nations over the past few years has not worked. They have tried various attempts at regime change in Cuba. They have tried various attempts at fermenting discord among the people, and it appears that the people are very much in line with continuing what they call the revolution. At the same time, we also have to recognize
assassination as well.
Yeah, many assassination attempts against Fidel Castro, former head of state, who's the brother of the current head of state, who's Raul Castro. But again, we are also have to be in the mind as African people of forming an African-centered analysis of this particular problem, and as a result of that, we cannot simply look at Cuba as a revolutionary nation as far as African people are concerned. This is a nationalist position in the sense that we have to always be mindful of and look at the conditions of African people in Cuba and realize that the people that are currently running Cuba, as far as the government is concerned, as far as the elites in Cuba are concerned, are European people for the most part. And so there is a situation, no matter what the social order of the day around the world, as African people, wherever we are, and the racial dynamic exists, we have a situation in which Europeans sit at the top of that ladder and Africans sit at the bottom of that ladder. So this doesn't
many people would say in response to that, people from the Caribbean have been able to go and get jobs in Cuba.
Oh, yeah.
They've been able to get medical treatment.
Yes, indeed.
Cuban doctors have been there to the rescue. So, all good things Cuban.
Yes, indeed. No? I think we sell ourselves short when we make statements like that, in the sense of the goal for African people is and should be complete freedom, complete independence and self-determination. So it's not about whether we're better off in Cuba, it's about whether we're free in Cuba. And if we have a situation in which after a revolution, so to speak, has taken place, the head of state bans so-called pro-black organization, African-centered organization, then that should raise alarm bells for us as African people. And that is not to put on blinkers and suggest that Cuba is the same as white supremacist America or Britain. That is not to put on blinkers and suggest that, for example, there are a lot of stats with regards to Cuba healthcare, Cuban education, that we might consider plausible in terms of how a nation impacts upon its citizens. But once again, if the Africans of that nation are still disproportionately negatively affected, these questions have to be asked. And we also have to look at, when we talk about sending doctors to different lands and sending teachers and whatever else like that, we have to look at who these doctors are. They said that Cuba sent army personnel to Mama Africa in various different instances. Appreciate the fact that, just like Brazil, a large percentage of the Cuban population is African, yet the face of Cuba is not African. The face of Cuba is European. Yeah. So when we see a dynamic like that, we see racial disparities that, as African people, we should ask very serious questions about. So it's not just about painting one picture and not the other. We have to appreciate all the dynamics. But central to us as African people, we must form an African-centered analysis. And many of these doctors and many of these army personnel were actually African people that were helping their brothers and sisters around the world. Also, when we actually look at it with a microscope and check who these people actually were. Tenda worry.
Tenda Mahdi, give thanks and praises, brother Shakura. Tenda
This station is rough and tough.
This is the way we do it here on the mothership. Galaxy,
Your superstation.
the only de-brainwashing station.
Hey, brothers and sisters, you're tuned to Africa Speaks with ALKEBULAN on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafiwi.com. The only de-brainwashing station. Sister Kai, you got a text there for us?
I do, and it says, has anyone make representation to Mr. Obama about the pardon of the lady in Cuba? Also, normal relationship has been established between the two countries.
Yeah, with regards to the first question,
Somebody says, Vudum, rise up. What's the name of the speaker now?
Tendamari. I think they might be referring to Shakara. Tendamari, that's young brother Shakara Mbandaka. Tendamari.
Tendamari.
Yeah. So with regards to that first
normal relations.
And I think we've that's been stated in terms of resuming normal relations. That's technically speaking not completely accurate. There's an embargo. The USA had enacted an embargo against Cuba. That embargo has not been lifted. Yeah,
So
they began the process.
Trade? Is it trade embargo?
All manner,
What kind of embargo?
a number of different stipulations. One was trade, and trade and commerce. Things like Cuba doesn't really get the internet. You know what I mean? But the main one is trade and commerce with regards to the West, basically. Yeah. But what Obama has done, he's done as much as he can without the power of Congress. Only Congress can overturn the embargo. What he's done is allow free flow of citizens. You know what I'm
He
saying?
set the ball rolling then.
Basically.
Right.
But with a Republican Congress set to be installed at the
They're
moment,
gonna be in the
doubtful.
majority, aren't they? They are in the majority.
overwhelming majority in both the House and the Senate.
Right.
So which means that it's unlikely, because they're more hardline right-wing politics.
Yeah,
it's
well,
unlikely.
We heard from one of them.
Right, exactly. And
summer.
he's a moderate Republican.
Right.
Christie. Yeah. So yeah. There's that. There was another question in there somewhere.
Well, the same person actually asks. No, actually, that was a different. Question.
There were two questions. in there.
It says, has anyone made representation?
Okay.
to Mr.
There's been an
Obama?
ongoing campaign for the exoneration of Mama Assata Shakur, and I suppose it hasn't been as high profile as those that, for example, feature Mumia Abu Jamal and Mutulu Shakur, who's Assata Shakur's brother, simply because she's actually liberated herself from the prison. So as a result, the brothers who are still behind bars have taken center stage in terms of campaigns. Mumia Abu Jamal probably being the most popular. There is a date set for the release of Mutulu Shakur, which I believe in sometime in 2016. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, there has been a date set for his release, for his parole. So yeah,
Tendamari. Brothers and sisters, you're listening to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, afiwi.com. No, galaxyafiwi.com. Now, should Obama pardon Mama Assata Shakur? Now, Brother Shakara, there are many that say, well, Mama Assata was a former Black Panther Party, part of the Black Liberation Army, who took up arms and was in direct confrontation with the police. Even if she didn't shoot that police, she certainly had intention of shooting a police, may have shot a police. And really and truly, should we be petitioning for her pardon? She broke out of prison. She's not this passive woman that everybody's, poor Mama Assata, she's not this passive woman. She's somebody that would, take one or two lives.
Certainly.
Does she deserve to be exonerated or pardoned?
And
is she lucky to got away?
The answer is she guilty of? The question is she guilty of the crime that they have charged her with? And as has been stated, there is no forensic evidence alone, medical evidence alone shoots that down completely. But we have to actually also deal with the fact that we're talking about a woman who has been placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted terrorist list. And this is part of the fuel for the fire in terms of returning her to America. They're trying to charge her as a terrorist, not as a criminal, but as a terrorist.
Which means what?
The difference between terrorism and criminality, I'll give you the FBI definition shortly. But the reality is that that first of all, she was the first woman, African woman and first woman placed on this FBI most wanted terrorist list, alongside a whole heap of Arabs who Arab men who are associated with the Al-Qaedas of this world, supposedly.
Well, we got some bombers
Yeah,
and
right.
plane hijackers.
Right.
Ramadan Abdullah Mohammed
Right.
Salah Ibrahim Salih Mohammed.
Right.
Al Yaqub Abdallah
Right.
Ahmed
Right.
Abdallah and Ali Saibin
Right.
Ali.
Right. And when you check what they're charged for,
Few of them.
as you have said, it's things like hijacking
Plane
plane,
hijackers.
bombing this, what, and the next one, and you know what I mean? These kinds of things. What Mama Assata was placed on there for was unlawful flight to avoid confinement, yeah, and murder.
So we're saying a lot of people flee prison and get away.
Well, you see, I don't even know about that. But when you look at terrorism, right? Let's look
No,
at
what I'm trying to say is that
Yeah.
a lot of people have escaped prison,
Yeah.
get away,
Yeah.
and they haven't been put on the wanted terrorist top
wanted
10.
terrorist list. That's a fact. You know what I'm saying? But in the sense of the fact that so murder is a crime. Fleeing prison is a crime. Yeah, if you're charged and you go to prison, it's under their law. That's a crime. But terrorism is something different to criminality. So let's give you the definition of terrorism. This is the FBI's definition now, yeah?
Okay.
All right, this is what they say. It says the unlawful use of force or violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof in the furtherance of a political or social objective. Let me read that one more time. The unlawful use of force or violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof in the furtherance of a political or social objective. Now, using that definition, terrorism is not just crime. Terrorism is premeditated attack against governments or civilians designed to meet a political end. So, when you say unlawful flight to avoid confinement, yeah? Unlawful flight to avoid confinement. Flight means that you're running away from somebody, okay? So therefore, if you are trying to avoid being confined, you are actually resisting force against yourself. That is the nature of flight. You are running away. Not towards, but away. So there is no justification for defining flight as terrorism, as in the use of force or violence towards achieving a political aim. There's no...
So you're not going towards them with a bomb or guns.
No,
You're
you're running
going
away.
in the opposite direction.
The opposite direction from these people.
From them.
Now, that
not
can be
to
considered a crime.
Okay, and you haven't got a plane either.
There's no planes, no. And you're not flying it into no building. No, if you've got a plane, you're flying it away.
The flight is not doesn't involve a plane.
No.
Right.
It's just away from the people then, whatever
right.
it is.
Okay.
All right? So this
Right.
cannot be defined as terrorism.
Right.
By the FBI's definition.
Right.
Okay. Murder can be defined as terrorism because murder is an act of violence or force. But it has to be, it's not just violence or force designed to achieve a political objective.
Right.
So that connotates the fact that it must be premeditated. This must be a plan. You are
Because
doing
it's based
this
on a political
because of this,
ideology.
in order to achieve this. So, if a woman is driving with two men, as Mama Assata Shakur was, and is stopped by the police, she has not confronted the police. She has not. She is not driving towards a police station in order to commit an act of terrorism
Right.
or commit a crime. Let's say. So she is stopped. An altercation takes place, even if, and we affirm her innocence. But even if she is responsible for having fired a gun that took the life of a police officer, that alone cannot be considered terrorism.
Right.
It can be considered a crime. But in order for it to be terrorism, she would have to have designed that act in order to serve a political, social objective. So, for example, not wanting to be arrested is not a political, social objective.
Right.
That's just resisting arrest.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a crime. It's not terrorism.
Right.
Right. So under their own definition,
There are instruments in the law for
for responding to that kind of crime. Yeah, for that. If there was a crime resisting arrest,
yeah,
like they did with Eric Gardner, so to speak,
Yeah.
they said he was resisting arrest, they killed him to death.
Legion,
Right? Do you see what I'm
over
saying?
here as well as in
Right.
the States.
Right. They did the same
Resisting
thing with Mark
arrest.
Duggan over here, resisting arrest, lawful killing.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
That's this is what they do. Okay? So I'm saying under their definition, there is no their definition goes against their action, if that makes sense, in regards to what terrorism means and the acts of Mama Assata Shakur.
They just want Mama Assata.
Exactly.
By any means
Okay.
necessary.
But what they have done is defined, and they use, you mentioned the black president and the black attorney general.
Yes, I did.
The man that made the announcement of her addition to this list was an FBI agent by the name of Aaron Ford, who is a so-called black FBI agent. A white man in blackface, brothers and sisters, FBI agent who made the announcement. And as a part of his announcement, he said she continues to spout her terrorist ideology.
Right.
Terrorist ideology is not the same as terrorism.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Terrorism is the act of terrorism. The ideology is the thing that might define or incite people to acts of terrorism, if that makes sense. Okay. So this is what they've done. So we have to look at these things as well. Yeah, we have to look at the whole. So they've added her to this list, and that becomes the context in which they're pursuing this agenda. Yeah, of trying to bring her back to the United States. But there's no evidence to suggest that she's planning any. They haven't stated that she's planning any acts of or criminal acts even in relation to the United States of America. All she does is she continues to preach and teach revolution to her people.
Right. Tendai Mari.
Remember, the greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Is the mind of the oppressed. Muta Baruka. Muta Baruka.
You're listening to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan and Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafiwi.com, the only de-brainwashing station. Sister Kai is going to give us a text shortly. You were listening to the word, sounds, and power of Brother Shakara Mbandaka enlightening us about the plight of Mama Assata Shakur. Because our subject matter this evening, brothers and sisters, is should President Obama pardon Assata Shakur? We're going to hear from Brother Leader shortly. Tendai Mari, Sister Kai, you got a text there, have you?
Tendai Mari, we do. And just to inform our listeners, the lines will be open up very shortly for you, because I know you've been trying to get in. So the lines will be open so you can get your bit in as well.
You can engage.
But you can engage with the text in the meantime, but the lines will be open soon. And this texter, Enoch, says, in the history of United States, President, can anyone tell me about any president that has pardoned any person that is wanted for murder of a law enforcement officer? Killing cop is capital punishment, which she could be given lethal injection.
Right. That's a very interesting point. I'm going to bring Brother Leader in. We could start by getting our texters question there, Brother Leader. I know you've been listening to young Brother Shakara.
I've got another text, and it says,
Okay.
Baba Dick Gregory also questions Cuban. He states that 72% of Cuban population is African. He also asks how many of the government is African.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, Tendai Mari, that's a good point. I'm sure Brother Leader is going to latch onto that one as well, Brother Leader. Okay, so the first question is about the actual pardon, Brother Leader. How many people who get pardon have actually slain a police officer, allegedly? Or an law enforcement officer even. Tendai Mari, Brother Leader.
Tendai Mari, I won't even pretend as though I can give you a statistic for that.
You can guarantee.
What I do know is that in law, if someone is accused of committing a crime, that person is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And the way to prove the person guilty, the burden of proof is on the accuser.
Right.
And that person must be the accuser must be, or the prosecutor must be able to demonstrate beyond any reasonable doubt, there must be more than 99% sure that this person has committed the crime. Now, how do they do that? By presenting evidence. It is evidence that convicts a person. And so the jury must only be concerned with not the reputation of the individual, not the political ideology of the individual, or the excitement, the media frenzy around the individual, but the jury must be interested in what the evidence demonstrates. And I think it's clear from the spec that was read that there was no substantive evidence to convict Mama Assata Shakur. In other words, it was a political conviction, which was called by her defense lawyer legalized lynching.
That's right.
Legalized lynching. They used the law to lynch Mama Assata Shakur, not evidence that was presented. And the only witness was the same state trooper who had pulled them over along with his colleague and who had shot Mama Assata twice.
Right.
His intention was to kill her. She was almost fatally wounded. She was not expected to live. By the grace of the Almighty, the Creator, and Muzimu Mukolo, our great ancestors, she survived it. But he decided that if he did not get her with the bullet, then he would use the law to then totally deny her liberty, and also to assassinate her character. Now, the other point I want to make is and it's important that we understand why this is so significant for African people around the world, and I hope brothers and sisters are poised to call in and share their views so the world know that we as Africans here in the UK are concerned about this issue affecting our mother Assata Shakur in all the way in Cuba. Yeah. By the way, this nonsense about Baba Dick Gregory is correct in saying that the population, the percentage of the
African population,
the percentage of how should I put it? The percentage.
72% of the Cuban
population is 72% African. Carlos Moore, Baba Carlos Moore, who was born in Cuba and had to run from Cuba from the Castro regime, which he describes as a very racist regime. And whilst it was anti-Western imperialism to the core, it was also very, very racist and oppressive to African people in Cuba. There's few even Africans who still call themselves socialists and Marxists these days. There's very few of them, I find, that will now deny that Cuba is a racist regime. And that Africans suffer racism inside of Cuba. Very few Africans now, even if they call themselves Marxists and socialists, will deny that. But Baba Carlos Moore says 75%, so there's not much in that. But the Cuban government will tell you that it's much less. The Cuban government will tell you that it's somewhere around 9 or 10% of the Cuban population that is African. Amazing, right? And they have all kinds of other categories. I can't remember some of the names. All kinds of other categories, which is predominantly African. But to undermine the fact that the Cuban population is predominantly and overwhelmingly African, the Cuban government engages in all kinds of, verbal acrobatics in order to define us out of existence. Right. That's very, very serious. The Brazilian government does the same thing as well. Yeah? So it's important that we recognize and we understand these nuances of racism that occurs even within the context of a Cuban government, which many of us have come to love and to be very affectionate and excited about. Yeah? Tendai Mwari. But, our sister, our mother, Mama Assata Shakur, has found refuge in the Cuban government because it suits the Cuban anti-imperialist, anti-Western imperialist politics. It suits their anti-Western imperialist politics. And because the American government has Cuban citizens that Cuba wants for trial.
Yeah.
You know, so there's politics going on here. It's not because they love Assata or they love us why they've given her asylum in Cuba. It's politics.
Political expedience.
It's a political battle that's going on between the USA and Cuba. And the USA is vexed with the Cuban government because 80% of Cuba's industry and over 90% of its wealth was in the hands of American corporations when Cuba had its revolution, and the Castro government nationalized all of these,
Industries.
all of these industries, and so it was no longer. It was taken up, literally taken away from American corporations that was paying tax to the American government, and it upset them. So
hit them in the pocket.
It hit them hard in the pocket. So they're still upset
them. Yeah.
But now they're playing kiss and make up politics. We have to be very, very careful now as African people.
Well, some people are saying they actually genuinely never really did depart because of Guantanamo Bay.
Well, this is it. They always had,
military bases.
Yeah, and they always had diplomatic relations, even if it wasn't upfront diplomatic relations. They always had some kind of underground activity, relations, communication between them.
Like the Arabs and the Jews, really.
Well, yeah. I mean,
they do big business together.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. This is why Papa Garvey say, "Hear all, but attend only to that which concerns you."
Leave people business alone.
Leave people business alone.
Yeah.
Show
mind your own.
Take an interest. Know what's going on in the world, but attend only to that which concerns you. What is the condition of African people in Cuba?
Right.
What did Fidel Castro do, apart from upset America and, confiscate and commandeer the over 80% of its industry and the wealth? Apart from doing that, what else did they do? The Cuban government banned over 500 active Pan-African and black liberation groups in Cuba. Banned them. Many were imprisoned. That's why Carlos Moore and many others had to run for their lives and leave Cuba. Now, I know I strayed a little bit from answering a question, but
no, not really, brother leader.
Back to it.
No, it's
well, but I was going to go on to say very quickly that the significance of an Assata Shakur is that she is a freedom fighter. And if we understand as African people that we continue to endure conditions of oppression, exploitation, and degradation, we must understand the value of an Assata Shakur. You see, when these people, you see the value that when their soldiers die in war, for example, the big lavish ceremonies, when they come back home, the lavish ceremonies that they put on in recognition and in honor, even if they throw them a bush afterwards, the elaborate ceremonies of recognition of their soldiers. Our soldiers are our freedom fighters, and Mama, they don't come better and more valuable than a Mama Assata Shakur. She was part of a generation who were prepared to take up arms against the state for the protection of the people, the African people. Now, so the principle that we have to follow is that we as Africans must be prepared to stand up for those. We must be ready to stand up for those who are prepared to lay down their lives for us. We must be prepared to stand up for those we must be ready to stand up for those who are prepared to lay down their lives for us. Tendai Mwari.
But Brother Leader, there are those that will question that perspective. That can you be promoting someone that promotes violence?
Tendai Mwari. Brother Leader, just before you answer the question, we need to open up the lines. Tendai Mwari, brothers and sisters, the lines are now open. 07538 005 634 or 07983 852 952. Sorry, Brother Leader, over to you.
Tendai Mwari, yes. The Mama Assata Shakur, the Black Panther Party, were never advocates or promoters of violence. what they wanted to do, what they were striving to do, is to end the violence.
So we're talking
the
propaganda
state
here?
violence. It's propaganda.
Right.
The state violence against the African community.
Well, you mentioned defending the community, Brother Lee. You didn't mean...
Yes, defending. This is why Papa Omowale Malcolm X, who were hailing and honoring in the 50th anniversary of his assassination, we're raising up his name. He says to us, Tendai Mwari, how does the saying go? They call us hate teachers. No, is that the one? No, not the hate teachers one, the violence. He had a saying in relation to... we're non-violent to anyone who is non-violent with us. But we are not non-violent with anyone who is violent with us. We don't believe in violence. We don't advocate violence. But if violence is being meted out against us consistently, and we try other means and methods of averting the violence against us, then the basic fundamental law of nature, which is self-preservation, will kick in. In order to preserve ourselves, we have to defend ourselves against violence.
Even in the law, you've got a right to defend yourself.
Absolutely.
And your home and your family, etc.
Absolutely. And now I just wanted to add something to the brilliant expose that we've had from young Shakura. Such a gifted young brother.
Indeed. I don't know where he gets it from.
What an analysis. What an awesome and powerful analysis that we've had from this young brother. Tendai Mwari. I want to add that this kangaroo court scenario that resulted in the conviction of Mama Assata Shakur, even that kangaroo court did not convict her of terrorism, you know. Correct me if I'm wrong, my son. They didn't convict her of terrorism. In 1977, when she was convicted, in 1979, when she escaped, they didn't upgrade it to terrorism either. She had done nothing for more than escape. The worst crime that they had convicted her for was murder. Yeah, escaping from prison is a lesser crime. You, for instance, you can't go to the electric chair for escaping from prison, but you can go to the electric chair for killing someone. Yeah. When she in 1984, I think it was around about 1984, she went to Cuba. She hadn't committed she hadn't been accused of any further crimes in America, and since then she has not been accused of any further crimes in America. Yeah. So how is it that in, I think it was 2012, her status was 13? Yes, because it was the 40th anniversary. May, and this could show you how these people operate. They don't forget anything. May the 2nd, 2013. Yeah, that's correct. 2013. 40 years to the day. 40 years to the day when the police officer was shot to death, because he was killed on May the 2nd in 1973. They upgrade her so-called criminal status to a terrorist. Not just any old terrorist, you know. One of the top 10, the top 10 most wanted. The top 10, they placed her in the top 10. No, she was then nearly 70. She was about 70 now. She was 68.
78.
Right? She's 70 now. Right?
That's a very important context, you know, for people to to glean. That's a 70-year-old woman.
There's a 70-year-old woman. She actually is a grandmother. A 70-year-old grandmother. They've upgraded her or wanted status to one of the top 10. Well, we can't really take this terrorism thing serious, because if this granny...
Well, the plane hijackers and a 70-year-old woman, I mean...
Come on.
There's some imbalance there.
This-
Mind you, she's African though, so that
I guess that puts something.
And these people know about people like Nani and Queen and Zinga and Ya Santo.
So she's reaching
fought
that.
into
She's reaching that
age.
stage now.
Yeah, you know.
Crescendo.
It's like get mystical.
You see, they know
now,
African
It's like-
tradition.
They know our history more than we do,
Oh,
Because these were elderly women,
Yes,
you know.
yes,
these-
Yeah, man.
yes.
Because them say Nani could have
That's when
catch bullet in
fire-
her behind
that's
and
when
them something
fire-
Yeah.
and
That's
run
when
fast
fire
and
burn
everybody.
That's
and
right.
everything there, so.
Mama Yasante was about 68 when she got busy and start to throw it down, you know. And
Teaching us something.
yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, Queen Nzinga
Yeah, man. She
was in her 80s.
Yeah, man. She was well up.
You know, she was well up when she, you know, when she hung up her sandals, you know, her war sandals, you know. I mean, these are powerful African queens. Yes, we know, but nonetheless, if she was not deemed to be a terrorist and had not been convicted or accused of any terrorist crimes, how can you then become a terrorist? And this is under the watch of Obama and his black Attorney General Eric Holder. It's an utter disgrace. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
Be as proud of your race as our fathers were in the days of yore. We have a beautiful history, and we shall create another in the future that will astonish the world.
Tendai Mwari, yes, this is Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM. Should President Obama pardon Assata Shakur? The lines are open, brothers and sisters. You can join us by calling 07983 852 952 or 07538 005634. Yeah, I'll repeat those numbers again because I think I did it fast, just for you that don't have the number. 07983 852 952 or 07538 005634, or you can text 07572 222 156. Should President Obama pardon Assata Shakur? Should we be concerned with her age, that she's now 70? Should she be brought to trial? Do we feel, whatever her age is, she should never have escaped and she should have allowed the American criminal justice system to see its course? Do you think that Cuba and America, is Assata Shakur safe with Cuba and America's so-called good relations? Can we trust America or Cuba? Why do we think that Obama should be the one to pardon her? The numbers to call, once again, are 07983 852 952 or 07538 005634. Brother Leader Bandaka, I mean, we make mention to the fact that she's not a terrorist because she wasn't arrested under that act. But the Black Liberation Front and the Black Panther Party, had they stood up today, wouldn't they not be seen as a terrorist threat?
Well, Tendai Mwari, these days, I think you can be perceived as a terrorist threat for much less than carrying a lethal weapon or threatening violence. You just need to speak in principle about injustice. If you're not careful, you become a terrorist. We have to be very, very careful, and that's why we have to be very interested in what happens with Mama Assata Shakur. We've got to be interested. We've got to understand, brothers and sisters, that the European world are united. The European world are organized. Global white supremacy is, as the name suggests, an international force that has its tentacles all over the world.
Global force.
It's a global force. And every aspect of global white supremacy works, as Mama Marimba Ani says, works in the interest of global white supremacy, even if it appears to be in opposition to the main manifest expression of global white supremacy, i.e.,
the American government.
Even if it appears to be on the surface, like, is that called? Even if it appears to be on the surface in opposition, like, what's going on between Russia and America now, they sort of look like they have a little standoff against each other. They know how and when to play kiss and make up politics, and we always get caught in the middle, like the dog and the bone. Yeah, but we must remember we are the bone.
Right, we have Brother Kweku. Brother Kweku, how would you like to join the discussion? Hold the line, Brother Kweku. Okay. Go ahead. Tenamori. Yes, we can. Tenamori, this is Galaxy 102.5 FM. Let me read these texts.
Sorry, Brother Kweku, we're having a little bit of trouble getting you live.
Yes, so just hold your discussion.
Yeah.
And let me just read these texts to our listeners while we're trying to sort you out. This is from Enoch, and he says, Chuck Williams was executed in California, although President Obama asked for him not to be executed, but was turned down by the governor, and he carried out the killing. And then there's another text. He said there's no statute of limitation in murder or killing of cops.
Right. In other words, it can't be pardoned. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Well, the statute of limitation would be ability to try and convict. Mama Assata has already been convicted, but maintains her innocence. So I'm a bit concerned when when texts like that come in. I mean, we are affirming innocence in this case, based upon Mama Assata's own affirmation and the evidence in the case. And so, as far as we are concerned, that the guilty verdict is the result of a kangaroo court that was more concerned with convicting and looking up a leader of the Black Liberation Movement than it was concerned with justice. But we have to also bear in mind that they tried to convict and charge Mama Assata with a number of crimes. Right. And even in that case, prior to this one, and even in this particular case, they had her on trial for a number of crimes, and only one of them
was able to.
It's important.
For the sake of our listeners, some of them may not be fully aware. And Brother Leader, you kind of mentioned part of it. Brother Shakarai mentioned part of it, but the actual incident that took place that she was arrested for, we haven't actually made that clear to our listeners. Some of our listeners may not be actually clear about what happened. So I don't know, in a minute, can that be summarized?
One more text before we do that. Linus Leo said, sounds like some kind of hidden agenda.
Yeah.
Tenamori. What's the hidden agenda? Are we talking about the American government, or we're talking about some of the interesting texts that we received?
No, I think she's talking about the American. I don't think she's responding in relation to the text.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a Bolaji, and he says, how can we expect Obama to pardon Assata Shakur? Is it not the same Obama who has been killing us in Africa with his Ebola biological weapon? Remember AFRIKA.
All right.
So in answer to the question, Mama Assata was traveling on the 2nd of May 1973 with two brothers from an organization called the Black Liberation Army, BLA, which was effectively at that time an offshoot of the Black Panther Party for self-defense. She was traveling in the car, and they were apprehended by two New Jersey state troopers, police officers. Yeah, the two brothers that she was in the car with are called Zaid Malik Shakur and Sundiata Akoli. So they all stepped out the car, and an altercation had ensued. The two officers were James Harper and Officer Forrester, James Harper and something Forrester, I can't remember his first name, basically. So what happened was that the officers had opened fire. Yeah.
So they initiated the shooting.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Right? And basically, so officers opened fire. There's confusion, conflicting testimony as to what actually took place after that. But what we do know is that Mama Assata was shot twice in the back and in the arm
by the state troopers.
Yeah, by the state troopers. One of the state troopers, Officer Forrester, was shot with his own gun.
Right,
with his own gun. Now, what's important is that Mama Assata being shot in the back, the shot broke or fractured her clavicle bone, which made that her arm was rendered unusable, paralyzed. So she wouldn't have been able to pick up a gun, raise a gun, shoot a gun. It was impossible, medically speaking. Medically speaking. I mean, but you can be shot and raise a gun. What's important is that where the shot entered and left the body and what the shot did was paralyze her arm, if that makes sense. Her main arm, which is her right arm, basically. So she couldn't have picked up no gun, to shoot anybody with the gun. There were no fingerprints. Her fingerprints were not found on the weapon. Nothing like that. As you said in the spec, following the trial, that the Officer Forrester died. The other officer admitted to conflicting statements and so on and so forth. But Mama Assata was
lied.
you know what I'm saying, lied on various different conflicting statements. And Mama Assata was convicted of a crime and subjected to prison in which she was tortured. Tortured. We should go into that as well a little bit. Some of their experiences in the prison.
Okay, Tenamari. Give thanks for that summary, Brother Shakura. Tenamari.
Brother Kweku, I'm going to say to our listeners, and I do apologize that a lot of calls are coming in, so we're going to have to be very tight, try and make our points concise or ask our questions direct. Go ahead, Brother Kweku. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. I want to commend young Brother Shakura for his breakdown of the difference between a pardon and exoneration. First. I also want to rise up Brother Leader in terms of when he said that we have to be prepared to stand up for those who would lay down their lives for us. And we have to remember also that the white world system as a worldview, and we have to have our own worldview where we will stick by our philosophy, our morals, and mores, and I'll leave it as that. I want to go on to something else further down, but I'll try and phone in after all the others. Okay?
Okay. Give thanks, Brother Kweku.
So Tenda, appreciate love that.
Tenda, give thanks for that, Brother Kweku.
Tenda, I should have said in the previous breakdown that Zaid Malik Shakur was also killed at the scene of this particular altercation. So he was killed by the officers. Bullets. But we have to bear in mind that these brothers and sisters were being hounded by the American state as a result of J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI's counterintelligence program, also known as COINTELPRO. And so we're talking about brothers and sisters who were fighting back against oppression, who were the victims of a state attack, a relentless state attack that involved infiltrating drugs and guns into the black community, fomenting discord among different organizations, arresting hundreds of activists.
And shooting them as well.
Plain shooting them I'm saying. All manner of tactics were used to destroy the movement. And arrest was just one.
Discrediting.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So we have to bear in mind the climate in which all of this took place. You know?
We have another text, sir.
It was in that same climate that Omowale Malcolm X and in 1965 was assassinated, and Baba Martin Luther King was also assassinated in 1968. It was in that same climate of U.S. FBI counterintelligence program. Had to flee for his life.
We could say Fred Hampton Jr., Mark Clark.
There's many
many
more.
You know what I'm saying? Bobby Hutton. You know what I'm saying? All these brothers and sisters were killed.
Medgar Evers.
Right.
This goes on.
Right. Let's keep the lines flowing, brothers and sisters. The number to call for this evening's show is 07983 852 952 or 07538 005634 or text 07572 222 156. And text, it says, was it Brother T says, let's not forget Cuba also hosted Huey P. Newton when he was on the run. Cuba also sent thousands of troops to fight apartheid forces when Reagan was supporting terrorism South Africa. Cuba also helped Maurice Bishop, Haiti during the earthquake and beyond, plus they assisted with Ebola and offer free training for doctors from poor areas of the world, including the USA. Including the USA. We've also got texts from 370, and they say, are we expecting Obama and Holder to do more because they are Africans? Great show.
Tenamari. Brother Shakara, Brother Leader, like I was saying earlier on, all good things Cuban, our text service just told us. So.
And are we expecting more? Is there an expectation generally from our people? Even from our guest this evening, that somehow Obama and Holder should do more because it's...
I'm wondering if our texter is refuting anything that we've said about Cuba's racist tendencies towards Africans living in Cuba. We've already accepted that there are elements of the Cuban government that we will like politically. There are elements of the Cuban government we will like. Cuba has made overtures to African people. They have had a political interest in doing so, and they have done so to great political effect.
And Brother Shakara also said a lot of these Cubans are brothers, Africans who actually want to help, use the facilities to help their brothers and sisters.
Well, there were Africans from all over the Caribbean who went to Angola to fight with the MPLA against UNITA and Frelimo and other, forces that were supported by the American government and the white regime of South Africa. Tenamari.
Tenamari, we have Sister Nahanda on the line. Sister Nahanda, how would you like to join the discussion? Right, we seem to have...
Right,
All right, Sister Nahanda, if you can call the other line. Can I just check with the other line?
The other line
is...
the other line.
Right, is it the 634 or the 952? We're not sure yet.
All right, okay.
All right, let's okay. All right, I'll give both numbers out, and if you call the wrong one, then they'll tell you which one to call. For now, it's 07983 852 952 or 07538 005634. Text 07572 222 156. The discussion this evening, if you've just tuned in, is should Obama pardon Assata Shakur? Can we trust Cuba? Can we trust Cuba to protect Assata Shakur? Or should we be concerned at this time?
Tenamari. But by the way, just a note of correction to our last texter. That when the crisis occurred in
Haiti?
In Grenada, and Maurice Bishop turned to the Cuban government for help, the Cuban government refused to intervene. That's a historical fact.
Right.
Tenamari. Right.
Okay.
Since Maurice Bishop was mentioned. Tenamari.
Okay, Tenamari. This is Africa Speaks with ALKEBULAN on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM.
Tenamari. So, Brother Leader, another texter was talking about do we have greater expectations of Obama and Holder because they're Africans? Should we have these expectations in terms of pardoning Mama Assata?
Tenamari. We don't have any great expectations. Anyone who has heard us speak about when Obama became president, or even before he became president, when he was running for the presidency.
I guess he's talking about the collective we, not necessarily...
Well, we're speaking to principles.
African...
We're speaking to principles here, not expectations. We're speaking to principles. If they are going to be held up as the first black president, or the first black Attorney General, then what does that mean to us? What is the significance of that to us as an African people? We want to see some justice being done for our people. And we want to see some injustice being corrected if the black president has any significance and if the black Attorney General has any significance at all. So it's not that we have any expectations. We're simply making pronouncements of principle.
Tenai Mwari.
And they're unprincipled anyway, so we don't expect anything.
Well, he's looked
no
after.
expectations.
He's looked after every other community, and
Well,
he's
exactly.
also looked after the gays and the lesbians,
and everybody else.
Everybody.
We have Sister Nahanda. Sister Nahanda, sorry for any disruption. But brothers and sisters, let me let Sister Nahanda's phone in on this number. That's why she's through now. It's 07538 005634. If you need to get in, you're going to have to get in fast. 07538 005634. Go ahead, Sister Nahanda.
Tenamari.
Again, like I said, I'd like to rise up Africa Speaks on Galaxy Radio for bringing a very informative discussion to the community. Quickly, I'd like to say, yes, I believe our mama should be exonerated, but I was also going to say that I do not fully believe Obama would do that, because then it would rise up issues with Mama Mumia Abu Jamal, who's in jail at the moment, and all the other political prisoners. I don't believe he'll be able to pardon Mama Assata Shakur without her being silent on the rest of the political prisoners that are languishing in jail at the moment. So I think it's a difficult position for him to be in, but I don't think it's something that he will even begin to try to challenge.
Do you think, Sister Nahanda, do you think that he may want to, or do you think he doesn't have that will to do? Do you think he had that disposition that he's really concerned or care?
I don't think he has the will to be honest. I don't think he has shown a will to want to advance the African community just in itself in America. So all what has gone on in the past few months with Eric Gardner and Mike Brown, he has not taken no strong stance on that level, so I don't believe he has the will to, unfortunately for us.
Tenamari,
give thanks for your contribution.
Tenamari, yes. We
Sister
have
Nahanda, Tenamari.
We have a text here, and it says, "What does Tenamari mean?" And that's from an intermittent Galaxy listener. Tenamari means be thankful unto the Creator. Is spoken in the Shona language of Zimbabwe. Yes, that's what it means. That's what we keep saying. We're giving thanks to the Creator in one of our mother tongues. We have another text here, and it says, how many Africans is in the cabinet of the Cuban government?
How many Africans in the cabinet of the Cuban government? Right.
Tendamore. We have Brother Ade on the line.
Yeah, you okay, ladies and gentlemen? You all right?
Yes, we are.
My brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what Cubans actually, I agree one with your texts. I mean, they did a lot for Africa. Because, I mean, you mentioned the UNITA guerrillas, Joseph Savimbi. I mean, Cuba, he was a puppet. And this is one of the places that the Cubans actually helped, especially in Southern Africa.
Okay. Anybody want to respond to that? Hold the line, Brother Ade. He's basically saying that Cuba's done a lot for Africa.
Well, Cuba, Cuba as a satellite of Russia, a socialist stroke communist satellite of Russia, has done a great deal, has assisted Russia in doing a great deal to promote and disseminate socialist Marxist politics around the world. They have done a great deal to promote their own interests around the world. And it has politically suited us as African people. We have had some small benefit, even if significant, but in the bigger scheme of things, relatively small benefits from the exertions of Cuba and Russia in certain contexts. Earlier on I said about...
I mean, if you look at them...
Can I just correct something? Can I just correct an error I made? I talked earlier on about the UNITA and Frelimo in Angola. What I meant was UNITA and Finla, not Frelimo. Frelimo was Mozambique.
Sorry, go
ahead,
my brother.
freed was Mozambique. That was Joseph Samara, the late who died in a plane crash.
Yes. And it was a positive force in Mozambique. Finla was the reactionary force in Angola. Sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, but you mentioned, I mean, if you look at Cuba, well, I mean, it's one of the few places where there is the Yoruba language in that part of the southern hemisphere where the Yoruba language is allowed to fester. This is one of the things that, even though I agree with what you say there, that the blacks there are not necessarily up at the higher echelon, but because the Yoruba culture is alive to survive, especially in Little Havana, it's alive to survive there, brother
Say that again, sorry.
I said the Yoruba language is allowed to survive.
No, yes,
it's not. That's not an unusual dynamic. But when you look at South and Central America and the Caribbean in general, the retentions of African culture, African spirituality, African languages are rife with that throughout. Brazil as the largest population of African people, and the Yoruba language is strong there. Even in places like Trinidad, the Yoruba language is strong there, and in places like Guatemala, Belize, places like those, you have languages that are very African, or of African derivation. There are places that you will go in Jamaica, and the Akan language is spoken almost as though the Africans were not separated from the land of Mama Africa. So it's not unusual that our traditions are survive. But what we have to ask ourselves, if that is the case, why is it that that the nation itself, the character of the nation itself, as it is promoted on the world stage, doesn't promote that? You have to go to Cuba to find these things. And I think that there's even a quote with Mama Assata, somebody who's been involved in political activism, didn't realize the extent to which Africans existed in Cuba until she went to Cuba. And she discovered Yemanja, and she discovered Shango and Eledumare in Cuba. Didn't know about all of that before, because the face of Cuba is whitewashed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's not mainstream Cuba.
Not mainstream Cuba.
That
wouldn't
have anything to do with white people.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I've got a text here, and it says the U.S. government should be taken to the International Criminal Court for everlasting state oppression. The racist governmental regime and global white supremacy never forgets any defeat. Haiti being a case in point for those who know its historical relationship with France. Sister Assata Shakur has been a thorn in the side of the U.S., and as unlikely as it may appear, the surface normalized relationship between the U.S. and Cuba is only a political move to meet a hidden agenda.
There's a problem there in terms of America actually recognizing the International Criminal Court anyway.
They recognize it when it's to their benefit, and they don't recognize it when
they haven't signed up to it.
Yeah, they haven't signed.
Right. But you can't bring an American president
to it. But they've been instrumental in sending other presidents.
And funding
cases. The Liberia
Charles
Taylor. Without America, that trial would never have taken place.
Tendai Mori. So I've got Brother Bob on the line. Brother Bob, how would you like to join the discussion? Please go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tendai Mori. Good evening, brother.
The panel, yeah. I'm a bit ignorant about this subject at the moment.
That's okay. Go ahead.
The lady in question is Mother Assata, yeah?
That's correct.
Assata.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would like to ask, due to my ignorance.
My brother, you need to take off your radio or whatever is feeding back, please, or turn it down or do something.
And you need not apologize for your so-called ignorance, my brother. We all start from the position of ignorance.
Thanks very much. But this is really out of sync. I would like to ask you: is the name of this person? Was that our original name?
Good question, Tenai Mwari. Let's address this. I'm going to say yes. You will. I get where you're going with this thing. We haven't mentioned the name that she was given at birth because it was a principle of the Black liberation or the African-centered movement to reclaim African names or attempt so to do. And so Mama Assata, in terms of affirming her Africanness, reclaimed the name Assata Shakur. I'm not going to mention what her name or the name that her label or the label that her parents gave her.
That brother.
Yes.
I will accept that due to, and big respect to that.
Give thanks.
She was arrested and convicted under this name, Assata Shakur.
She had the name Assata Shakur when she was arrested, but that is not the name that the American state used to refer to her to this day.
They didn't refer to her by this name?
No.
Okay.
If you want to know that name, you have to go do some research. Come on, I'll call it.
But if you research Assata Shakur, the name will come up.
Yeah, you find it.
This couldn't be a what do you call it, obstacle in her case to be pardoned by the government.
No, it wouldn't be. No, it wouldn't be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because President Obama at the moment he's trying to do. I reckon he's got good intentions, President Obama at the moment. He's doing bit by bit, I mean, his hands are tied, and what he's done with Cuba, it could be something which he had in his mind to do. That was one of his things that he believed that he could operate on. So he got that going.
Is that why President Obama is sending drones into Pakistan and into Somalia? Because he has good intentions. Yes, my brother.
You're talking about the president. You're talking about the president, right? He's got to do things which seems.
What, bomb people to death?
Yeah.
He's got.
That's what the American government. That's what they voted him for, right? They voted him to do the big bad things there.
And he accepted the job. You think he might have known that they would want him to kill some people around the world before he took the job, my brother?
Yes, sir.
Does that make him a good person or a bad person?
Pardon, sir?
Does that make him a good person?
Yeah, you
mentioned
good intentions, bro. Where were the good intentions?
Well, Leader Mandaka.
My brother.
Leader Mandaka, if you become president of the African blah blah blah, I hope that your intentions are all good. But if you have been attacked by some forces, some adverse forces, well, I believe that you'd have to respond.
I don't remember the Somalians attacking him. I don't remember Libya attacking America.
Yeah.
When
Go on.
Yes, he supported the toppling of, and I'm not a Gaddafi fan, but I'm certainly against the invasion of any sovereign territory of the African continent by the United States of America, and that's what Obama sanctioned as the president of America and helped to fund and to facilitate. He also helped to fund and facilitate the toppling of Laurent Gbagbo of Cote d'Ivoire.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Does that make him a good person, my brother? Simply because the French government, which is friendly with America, did not like Gbagbo because, amongst other things, Gbagbo was saying to the French government, give back Cote d'Ivoire and other so-called francophone countries the trillions of dollars that you have in your treasury that you have been hoarding since the 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? So, does that make President Obama a good person?
No, I'm going to try to answer this question by being a bit facetious, right? There's three things you need to be to become president. You need to have to go to one of the universities, Harvard or Oxford or one of them big universities. That's one. You need to have a lot of money. And the third one, what do you think the third one is? You need to become president of the United States.
Go ahead, my brother. You tell us. Come.
You have to be elected.
Nice.
So therefore, the majority are the amount of people.
Elected or selected, my brother?
Pardon?
Elected or selected? Are American presidents elected or selected?
Which one do you think, brother?
Well, I'm asking you. You are the one. You're informing us.
I can only go by my present knowledge of things.
Okay, I think they're selected.
They reckon it was an election.
I think they're selected.
Yeah, well, you see, it's quite possible.
The American elections is a charade.
All right, brother.
I'm sorry to say, my brother. I'm sorry to burst your bubble.
You can check the Whirlwind newspaper if you want.
Therefore, his hands are tied, right?
Mm-hmm.
His hands are tied.
All right. Okay.
Let's give him some some good things,
All right then.
What? Some more bombs?
Well, let all right, my brother. Okay, Brother Mandaka, Brother Chakara, I know you want to respond, but there are a queue of people waiting. And give thanks, Brother Bob.
All right.
Yeah, give thanks. And we good thing his hands are tied. Because if him hand was loose, then G's and peace.
I'm telling you, there'll be more bombs raining on poor Mama Africa, you know, and other parts of the world, no doubt.
Right. We have a
Anybody
text
upset
here.
America?
And you can text, you can join the discussion by texting as well, sisters and brothers. You can join our texter. And he says, Raw Element says, a month ago, the CIA planted a rap artist in Cuba to cause an uprising. Jaliv, African time for unity. Not sure. Some clarity on that one, maybe. And
Just
Enoch
the line
says
is now free, brothers and sisters.
they
634
speak.
is now free. Sorry,
Somebody, Enoch says they speak English in Jamaica as their main language. All right, I think that's in response to you saying
Yoruba is not the official language of Cuba. You know what I'm saying? It's Spanish, I believe. So, so yeah, there is no nation on the planet, as far as I'm aware, in which
Benin.
Okay, but where an African language is the official language.
Benin.
Okay, well, Benin is the exception to that rule.
Somali.
But is that the official language?
Yes.
So you know sometimes they have two free, but the first one is the main one.
Yeah.
So I'm not. I
Somali
thought in
and Benin.
Somalia Arabic was the official language.
No, I don't think so.
No, Arabic is one of the official. Siad Barre in the 1970s made made Somali the official language.
Okay.
But where you are correct is the overwhelming majority of African countries. The overwhelming majority. It's only you could count it on one hand. That has I think Ethiopia.
Amharic
language, is
one of the official
languages.
And there's one where Swahili is. I think Tanzania or something where Swahili is.
Tanzania
is one of the official languages.
Julius Nyerere made.
But just to say, I never said that that Akan was the official or an official language of Jamaica. I said that there are places in Jamaica where you go and you will very much find the language intact among people that speak it. That's to clarify that point.
Or significant elements of the language.
The numbers to call 07538 005634. That's the only number to call today. 07538 005634 or text 07572 222 We have Sister P. Sister P, how would you like to join the discussion today?
Greetings. Tenamari.
Tenamari, Sister P.
I know time is short, but I just wanted to highlight in terms of timing, in terms of when our people have been taken from us, in terms of how things are happening. You raised that Mama Assata Shakur. They basically ramped up in terms of putting her on the wanted list in May of, not last year, but 2 years ago. Is that correct?
Yes. 2013.
May the 2nd, 2013.
Exactly. And is that not the same month that Omowale
Malcolm X's granddaughter was
also taken from us?
That's correct. It was assassinated, yes.
Okay.
In Mexico.
I just wanted to highlight in terms of how things happen. Also the same month that Omowale...
I think his was May the 9th. I think it was May the 9th. 1 week later. Just because you asked a question, I think, and the link that you're making, my sister, I think it was exactly 1 week later. It was May the 9th that Malcolm Shabazz Jr. was assassinated.
Exactly. So I just wanted to highlight in terms of how things are happening, in terms of, you're ramping up Mama Assata Shakur on one side, and then I don't like use the word coincidentally, but, it's like Omowale Malcolm X's grandson has also taken from us within a week of that, kind of taken place, And when we were talking about whether the so-called government is going to exonerate or pardon, it made me think of Aristide of Haiti, in terms of you're kind of bringing somebody back into a country, but he has no mouth to say what he wants to say. So I thought, I just wanted to put that out there for our people.
Give thanks.
Leave it there because I know time is very short.
Tenda Mori. Give
Tenda
thanks,
Mori.
my
Sister
sister.
Peter,
Yes.
Tenda Mari.
Tenda Mori. We
Very
have a few
insightful
texts.
contribution.
Definitely. Let me get through some of these texts. Right. Would say that the image of Cuba we get is filtered through the white supremacy and capitalism of mainstream news. For example, few people know of Cuba superlative literacy, health, philanthropy, and education, or the fact that Mandela went there first after his release to thank them for their help in ending apartheid. Should also mention that the Che Guevara supported the brothers in the Congo.
Yes.
And that's from Brother T. Hold on, we got some more stuff coming in here. Fidel Castro, and this is who this is from. This is from Burning and All Illusions. All right.
What if I knew?
Right. Fidel Castro as Che Guevara are members of white inferiority vehicles such as Freemasonry. They will help black-skinned people who are part of their order, but understand their overall objective is to protect what is commonly called white supremacy, really white inferiority. Black people mean nothing to these people. Just take a look at the ruling class of Cuba. And
well, there you go. Look at the dominant culture of Cuba.
We've got another text coming in.
Despite the predominance of the Africans in Cuba.
This is from Burning All Illusions. Can Brother Bandaka explain the argument that Barack Obama wasn't selected/elected to represent black people, and the fact that he has black skin, should that make a difference? Before you answer that, Brother Leader Bandaka, this one says it was Jay-Z and Beyonce that went to Cuba and caused a political row. Okay, thank you for that clarity. Tenamori, Brother Leader Bandaka.
Tenamori.
Do you want to deal with that question?
Tenamori, in case, two things I think I'll just throw in here very quickly that people need to know about the American presidency. One is that first and foremost, the party, the Republican or the Democratic Party, has to select who is going to represent that particular party before the people have an opportunity to so-called elect that person as the president. But even more importantly, there is information suggesting that all the presidents of America are related by blood. Interestingly, Barack Obama, and I think it used to be on YouTube,
Nepotism.
It might still be on YouTube, has been on YouTube admitting that he is the 9th cousin of Dick Cheney, and I believe the 11th cousin,
Dick Cheney being
the former vice president of America
under George Bush.
Under George Bush.
Junior.
And under George Bush, the junior, the younger as they call him, and the 11th cousin of the Bush family. Yeah, interesting. And I think he has some in-law relation, at least some in-law relationship with Bill Clinton, and some connection with what's her name, Princess. They call her Princess Diana. No, interesting. The interesting genome map, brothers and sisters. Tenai. So it looks as though you have to have a certain amount of blood running through your veins. And remember, Barack Obama's mother is European, and she seems to be related to a number of former American presidents. Tenai Mwari.
The discussion this evening, you're coming really to the close of our show, brothers and sisters. Should Obama pardon Assata? So if you want to get your calls in, you're going to have to do it very, very quickly now. The number to call is 07538005634. You can also text 07572222156.
Tenai, brothers and sisters. Right, we are coming to the close. We need to get the closing comments from our two guests who I want to say has really enlightened the program. I'm sure those of us who weren't aware of the tremendous work of Mama Assata Shakur, the tremendous courage of this African woman has been illuminated this evening, and we say tatenda to both our guests this evening. Tenda Mwari. I'm going to start with young brother Shakara. In terms of your clothing comments this evening.
Two very quick points. First of all, just to say, I think I did say early in the program that there, as far as literacy is concerned and the medical care in Cuba is concerned, there is a lot that we would consider positive in terms of a government servicing the needs of its nation. I did make that point very early, so I'm not sure why brothers and sisters feel the need to defend Cuba.
They may not have been tuning in from
No, I appreciate that. But I think that's been reinforced a number of times throughout the program, these things. So let's make that clear, brothers and sisters. There's no undue attack taking place against Cuba. We don't need to defend it so vehemently. But lastly, I want to just make a point in regards to the symbolism of an Assata Shakur and why these people feel the need to go after her so much. The difference between Mama Assata and many of those who have been political prisoners, and some are political prisoners, people like Daruba bin Wahad, Matuli Shakur, Mumia Abu Jamal, Geronimo Pratt, Geronimo G. Jagger. Some of those are now out of prison, but they served time. They served their time and then they were released. Some of those are still in prison. Matuli Shakur is still in prison. Mumia Abu Jamal is still in prison behind bars, and there's international campaigns for their freedom and so on and so forth. Mama Assata effected the second principle of Kwanzaa, which is self-determination, and freed and liberated herself from the prison. And it's worth noting that one of the people that assisted her in that effort was Matulu Shakur, who is now behind bars. Matulu Shakur is now behind bars, primarily, they say, for terrorism or whatever he was doing. But Matulu Shakur was running a clinic, in the ghetto, in America. Matulu Shakur was running a clinic that was, among other things, rehabilitating African people from drug addiction and so on and so forth. This man is a doctor, a health practitioner, and so it was these works that they were hounded for. You know what I'm saying, providing services for our people. These are very important lessons for us to learn in terms of, we see that the image of the gun tote in men and women fighting against the police, but we don't hear about the breakfast program, the education program, the healthcare, and the healthcare services. We hear about the Black Panther Party. We don't hear enough about the Black Liberation Army, which is a much more nationalist outfit. And many of those who were in the Black Liberation Army also were in the Republic of New Africa, which was a much more self-determining, African-centered, African cultural nationalist outfit that was providing services. One of the things that Mama Assata says is that when she made the transition between those organizations, she was aware of the fact that we weren't teaching the children our history. We're teaching them about China and Russia and Cuba, but we're now teaching them about Africa and their own culture, their own heritage, and so these are her concerns, and so we have to know these things. So the symbolism now, when they say, brothers and sisters, that this woman continues to preach her terrorist ideology, I understand what they're saying. I understand what they're saying. That is a very, very important statement for us to understand. That means that Pan-Africanism, revolutionary Pan-Africanism, nationalist Pan-Africanism is being defined as terrorist ideology. So therefore, any acts that we do in the name of Pan-Africanism and self-determination becomes terrorist. From Kwanzaa to ALD, you know what I'm saying, right?
We get the point.
So we have to know these things, but the symbolism of a Mama Assata Shakur is what we need to understand. So we hear that of our Mama, we defend her.
Tatenda, we've only got 30 seconds left of our program. Tendai, brother leader.
Tendai, I think, I can just ride on the summary, the excellent summary that Brother Shakara has given. But I just want to just emphasize that a pardon, the main reason why we do not seek a pardon is because a pardon implies guilt.
Yes,
it's very important that we stress that. An exoneration presupposes or prestates that a crime was not committed, and this person should not have been tried and convicted in the first place. A pardon is the state that is excusing the person having committed the crime, maybe because the person did some good community service, or redeemed themselves and redeemed society and done some good work to make America look good. And Mama Assata Shakur does not fit into that category. She'll never qualify for a pardon. But what we do know very, very strongly, we are convicted in the knowledge that she did not commit the crime. And on the basis of that, we must demand that she is exonerated, like all other political prisoners, African political prisoners, wherever they are in the world. We demand that they are released and exonerated. Tendai Mwari.
Brother Leader.
We don't want a pardon.
Tendai Mwari. Brother Leader and the listeners, we have been granted a 20-minute extension, so we give thanks and praises to Mwari and Mzumukuru. Tendai Mwari. The management of Galaxy Radio.
Tendai Mwari. I think the Texans would be glad. At least I can read out the text.
And we want more callers to call in.
Callers, you can call in on 07-538-005-634. That's 07-538. Someone's already doing it.
That's right.
005-634.
We want to hear from the people.
Absolutely, that's the hotline. Shall I do the text, Sister Kai? Okay, Tendai Mwari. Okay. I'm giving myself...
You're really getting on there, brother.
It's quite something, you know.
I see you blinking at You just read them texts one time, you just read them off.
I blame it on the phone, you know, and the lighting and all kind of stuff, you know. Because I
blame it on the boogie, bro. Blame it on the boogie.
At all. Sister Kai, I think you need to resume text duties immediately.
Don't worry. Before I go over to Sister, let me just read these texts. And it says, careful. Careful. You all will be called terrorists next.
Oh, my word.
And we can call that probably already. And from Vudum, all at Galaxy, rise up, brilliant. And we've got...
Vodum to you.
Vodum to you, my brother or sister.
Magina says, Obama is also related to the then President Reagan. That's correct.
Yes.
We get for all these texts. Hold on. Right, this one, look. Go ahead. Yes. Sister, go ahead. How would you like to join our discussion today?
I don't think the sister's here now.
Oh, she's not there. She should be.
She was there, I think.
Okay.
Tendai Mwari.
Okay. Feel free to...
I think she's on her way back.
Feel to call again, my sister. The number, Brother Omawale,
is 07-538-005-634. That's 07-538-005-634. Tendai Mwari. Brother Leader, I know you had to condense your closing comments, so now we have an extension so you can broaden it.
Yes,
I know you like to broaden.
Tendai Mwari. I'm just fascinated by this defense of Cuba, as if Cuba needs defending. You know? I'm just fascinated by that, and yet nobody who has spoken in Cuba's favor has been able to contradict anything that we have said about the manifest contradictions of Cuba, that whilst, and we said this from the outset, you know, whilst there are things that you can identify that we have, quote unquote, benefited from in terms of Cuba's politics, you know, foreign policy and so on, there are contradictions manifesting, especially in regards to Cuba's domestic politics. If we're hearing from, people like Dick Gregory and Carlos Moore, who was born and raised in Cuba and had to run from Cuba. This is Carlos Moore, the Pan-Africanist, who had to run from Cuba for his life, and who tells us over 500 black liberation groups or Pan-African groups were banned by the Cuban government as soon as the Cuban government got into power. We're telling you things like this. If we're telling you things like, for instance, whilst evidence suggests, reliable evidence suggests that 75, upwards of 70% of the Cuban population is African, yet the Cuban government would give you the impression that it's less than 10%. We should be concerned about things like that, because that is potentially genocidal. So I know on the surface, we feel that Cuba is, our friend. I wanted to share with everybody, my father is a born Cuban. He's born in Cuba. I've got family in Cuba. Okay? But I can't afford to have any emotional attachments to Cuba that disable my capacity to make an objective analysis and interrogation of Cuba, of Cuba's effect on African
Hold
people
the line, please.
in
Sorry.
Cuba.
Tenamara. We have raw elements. Go ahead, please. Respect.
Tenamara, respect to you.
Tenamara, the Honorable Prophet Marcus Mosaic Yahweh, Brother Shakur.
Yes, dear.
I forgot my brother's name. To the whole girl.
Omawale.
Brother Omawale.
Brother, respect and honor every time.
Honor and respect to the eye as well.
Yeah, in the mighty name of the Creator, Africa, stand up all the time.
Yes. All the time. Eye the eye.
Brother, thank you every time. I said in a text earlier on where I was saying the CIA, they send a rapper into Cuba to cause an uprising like what's going on in the Middle East. Yeah, that's only a month ago. So consider about it now where America wants to make amends with Cuba. So these people have two tongues. So, you know what I mean? People have to aware of everything what's going on. And no care what regime change. African will always be African, and no regime is going to look out for African. It's only African can look out for African. I leave it to the mighty name of Creator. Thank you for your time, sir.
Yes, blessed.
Respect
And honor to the eye. Tenamara.
Vodum.
Tenamara.
Any comments? Any to our
well, let our listeners take the text number again before we get any comments.
Okay. The text line is 07572 222 156. That's 07572 222 156.
I just like to read this quote from Mama Assata herself.
Go ahead.
In relation to the counterintelligence program, yeah. She says it didn't matter what position you took. It mattered that people related to those positions, that people understood what you were saying, that people supported you. The government perceived us as a threat because they understood that we were serious. They understood that we were serious, and they understood also that we were becoming a more sophisticated opposition. Yeah? And so what she's saying, brothers and sisters, is that the brothers and sisters involved in various different organizations, in and around the United States of America, were learning the lessons of what it means to organize and to nation build simultaneously. Not just to wage a revolution for the sake of destruction, but also construct. So you see more and more as the organizations developed, you saw more, not just confrontation with the system, but the development of institutions among the people. Building, right? The development of institutions that would teach the people, feed the people, clothe the people, right. Heal the people. Yeah, this is what was taking place, and I gave an example.
That's when you become a real threat.
That's when you become a real threat. I gave the example of Assata Shakur, and we there are a lot of lessons in that era of history we need to learn. You know what I'm saying, in terms of this clinic that was being housed in a home. Yeah, we hear about confrontation with the police and bombing. The man was healing people in the home, right? And brothers and sisters from the community were coming to this house, to receive acupuncture. Right. Acupuncture that is now big money, in the European health system. People pay thousands of pounds to get treated for acupuncture, and he was using acupuncture to heal drug addiction in the 1960s and 70s. Yeah, and is now languishing in prison. And so when we talk about sophisticated opposition, that's what we're talking about. That is why these brothers and sisters and elders now are being classed as terrorists, and the ideology that they speak of is being classed as a terrorist ideology. And so what we call them freedom fighters. And if we are to earn our stripes as freedom fighters today, there's a lot lessons that we need to learn from these brothers and sisters, these elders. There's a lot of replicating, building upon, standing on those shoulders that we need to do. So we need some healthcare centers in some homes in the African community in Brixton.
We'll be people more concerned about health and CFD, health and
acupuncture.
And all these things.
Health and against the government, so health and safety.
It's some of those same ideas that we wish to pursue and develop through the vision of the Interim National African People's Parliament. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. We have Empress on the line. Empress, how would you like to join the discussion this evening?
Distribution, you know, just analysing my disgust and plus my little knowledge or knowledge or whatever they call it. The point is, must we as a nation of people continue to live under global repression? Is it because from the points said in areas of the discussion and the calls, we analyze we're in a very situation, we as a people globally. And it is very necessary to date and into the future that we reach to a modality.
All right.
And continue to encourage our children and the generation to come into infinity until they see consciousness.
Absolutely.
It is very key and detrimental to our well-being, their well-being, and the health and sanctity of the sovereign African nation.
Word sound, my sister.
I would like to raise this hair, the sound and the wave within the consciousness for our ancestors who have traveled through the many seas and that we have survived globally.
Yes.
Wherever they are, and that if they had not staunch within 1,000 years, 2,000 years since the invasion, it's been a long invasion.
Yeah.
Who stands for us? Who is there to support?
Word sound, my sister.
Give thanks.
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
Blessed love. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
And that was Mama
Empress.
Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari.
But Papa, our sister start off by asking, must we continue to endure the system of oppression? No, we must not, my sister. That's a short answer to the question. And our sister ended her comments by asking the question, who will stand up for us? Well, the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey, who has given us the black print for liberation. You will not find the black print for liberation anywhere else, but grounded in the philosophy of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey. And he says we must stand on our own two black feet and fight like hell for our place in the world.
That's right.
Stand on our own two black feet and fight like hell for our place in the world. He said God made man Lord of creation, gave him possession and ownership of the world. And you have been so darned lazy that you have allowed, I don't mean you, my sister, I mean all of us. Papa Garvey talking to all of us. That you have allowed the other fella to run away with the whole world, and now he's bluffing you and telling you that the world belongs to him and that you have no part in it. We're going to hear these words from the most eminent prophet and king. And then he said to us, brothers and sisters, wherever we find ourselves in the world, we must organize ourselves as a nation. And that's what Shakara was speaking to just now. Because that is what we were engaging in that is so little spoken of in the 1960s. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Give thanks for that, Brother Leader. You got a text there, Sister Kai?
We have a couple, and it says, you didn't say how many of us in the Cuban government.
Okay.
Somebody else, I think, speaking on behalf of somebody else who asked that question.
You want to know how many Africans are in the Cuban government?
Yes. Tendai Mwari. And
Tendai Mwari, are you be able to address that?
Tendai Mwari, I can't give a figure.
If any.
What we said was that the face of Cuba is white. Whenever you see Cuba represented, it's a white representation.
The government or otherwise.
Yes.
I don't know of an African. I've never seen one.
Unless that's the point our text is trying to make. There isn't any.
I remember going to the African and African Descendants World Conference Against Racism.
Actually, I wanted you to touch on that, bro.
Barbados in 2002. The representatives that came to the African and African Descendants World Conference Against Racism
this is important,
were white, were Europeans. Yes?
From Cuba.
From Cuba. The Cuban, what do you call it, interpreter was white. And when we took a stand, over 80%, some people say over 90%, but it was overwhelming majority of the conference, took a stand and said, this is an Africans-only conference. Somebody said, well, what about the Cubans? We said, well, if them white, them I forgot too. And some people were really, really upset because, no, you can't chase out the Cubans. And we were saying, well, if the Cubans respected us, they would send Africans to the African and African Descendants. You hear the name of the conference? The African and African Descendants World Conference Against Racism. So about half a dozen white people them sent from Cuba. Right? It's a classic example of the kind of race dynamics in Cuba.
And the profile
they didn't even respect us enough.
Yeah, and the profile that Africans from Cuba would have got for being there
absolutely
as well. Clearly they want to undermine those. So if there are any in the government, I'm sure they're very, very few.
Absolutely. And people jumping up saying, well, no, but look what all the Cubans have done for us. Cuba did, this is wonderful Cuba. So if Cuba had respected us, they would have sent some Africans. They didn't even send one. They had a party. They didn't even send one African in that party.
We have a text, and this is from Brother Kwame. Obama is a 33-degree Mason. All U.S. presidents are 33-degree Masons. Check the secret code. And that's from Sister Mandela.
Nice.
And Vudum sends text. Vudum, Empress Carla.
Nice.
And Vudum says, Vudum.
Yeah. Freemasonry is an institution of global white supremacy. I think that's all I need to say in relation to that. American imperialism is linked into that institution, into that system, and so it follows.
To them, my brothers and sisters, right? We are coming near to our 20 minutes. We just want to give thanks to brothers and sisters, to our two guests. Our subject matter this evening has been, should President Obama pardon Assata Shakur? We've really broadened it quite a
and it's
quite
really
a bit.
But exoneration,
and
we're talking now.
Exactly, we're talking exoneration now, which was one of the questions that we have. In terms of signing the petition to pardon Assata Shakur, or should we be demanding exoneration? And it's quite clear from our two guests this evening, absolute and total exoneration, and even from the words of Mama Assata herself. Tenamoi.
We have a text and it says, when will black people assimilate the raw facts that black unity is the pinnacle of world change? It is so clear that this inferiority machine, white supremacy, best weapon is a chains on one's mind. Too often the argument opposes black unity. Responsibility and unity sit hand in hand. And that's from Burning an Illusion.
Right.
And
is that Burning All Illusion?
So Burning All Illusion,
right. Yeah. That's a powerful name.
And then we have another text from Desarov, and it says, black Cuban sports only.
Black Cuban
Oh, so he's saying that black people feature in the sport.
Yeah.
The netball team black, boxing, the track star team black, the boxing team
and
black,
the army,
and
the army, which is very much similar to the United States of America.
Front line, isn't it?
Overrepresented in the army.
Yeah, overrepresented in the army, and underrepresented in the highest ranks of the army, but overrepresented in the lower ranks of the army. And it was Africans who carried out the operations in Mozambique that everybody talks about. In fact, it was given a name from an African freedom fighter named Carlata. and the operation was called Operation Black Carlotta, because that was what the Africans who were in the army, they were fighting for their brothers and sisters in Angola. It's important that we understand that there was that dynamic, that element in the Cuban army that was sent to Mozambique. Tendai
Mwari, brothers and sisters, this has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafiwi.com, the only de-brainwashing station. Giving thanks and praises to Mwari Nyakusika, God the creator of the universe, for the spirits of Mzumukuru, our great ancestors. Brothers and sisters, we want to give thanks and praises to Brother Leader Mbandaka, Brother Shakara. We want to give thanks to all our callers, texters. We want to thank the Galaxy management as well, and also our producer, Brother Olatunji Heru. This has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Join us again next week between 8 and 10, or maybe 20 past, if we're lucky again, where we talk it straight.